When love no longer holds a woman, it can feel as if the ground has been taken from beneath her feet. The promises that once gave strength, the closeness that once brought safety, now dissolve into silence. But the end of one love is not the end of her story. In fact, it is often the beginning of a deeper journey, a return to herself. Healing is not about forgetting. It is about remembering who you were before the pain and discovering who you can become beyond it. When love leaves, the first thing a woman often feels is the emptiness it leaves behind. The house that once echoed with laughter now feels quieter, the nights feel longer, the mornings heavier, and in that moment the silence seems unbearable, almost like an enemy waiting to swallow her whole. The natural response is to run, to cover it with noise, with busyness, with the presence of others. But every time she runs, she postpones the one meeting she truly needs, the meeting with herself. Facing silence is not easy. It is like standing in front of a mirror where nothing distracts you from your own reflection. The silence asks questions that words cannot answer. Who are you now without that love? What remains when the person you leaned on is gone? What voice do you hear when no one else is speaking to you? These questions may feel uncomfortable, but they are the doorway to healing. Silence, when embraced, becomes a teacher. In the quiet, a woman starts to hear her own heartbeat again, the rhythm that was always there beneath the noise of the relationship. She notices her breath slow and steady, reminding her that life flows within her, regardless of who stands beside her. She realizes that she does not end where love ends. She is more than what was shared, more than what was lost. At first, the silence may feel heavy, but with time it transforms. What felt like emptiness begins to feel like space. Space to think, space to breathe, space to exist without pressure. In that stillness, she no longer feels abandoned. Instead, she starts to sense presence, her own presence. She begins to see that she is not alone with nothing. She is alone with herself, and that is the beginning of strength. When love no longer holds a woman, pain arrives like an uninvited guest. It does not knock softly. It bursts in, filling her body with heaviness, tightening her chest, and sometimes even stealing her sleep. Tears fall without warning, and memories replay in her mind like broken records she cannot turn off. This pain feels overwhelming, and the temptation is to either push it away with force or let it consume every corner of her being. But healing does not live at either extreme. Healing begins when she learns to honor the pain, yet not become it. To honor the pain means to acknowledge it, to give it permission to exist. It means whispering to herself, yes, this hurts. Yes, I am wounded. And yes, it is real. Many women are taught to hide their tears, to cover their brokenness with strength, to pretend they are unaffected. But pretending does not heal. It only buries wounds deeper where they remain alive beneath the surface. By allowing herself to cry, to speak her truth, to sit with her sadness without judgment, she takes the first step toward releasing it. However, there is a danger in staying too long in this place. If she identifies only with her pain, it becomes her identity. She may begin to see herself not as a person who has experienced heartbreak, but as heartbreak itself. The pain starts to define her story, her thoughts, even her worth. That is why the balance is sacred. She allows the pain to pass through her, but she does not build her home inside it. In honoring pain without becoming it, she treats her suffering like a visitor, not a permanent resident. She listens to what it has to say, because pain always carries messages about boundaries that were crossed, about parts of herself she abandoned, about lessons she did not yet learn. Once the message is received, the visitor no longer needs to stay. She releases it with gratitude, not hatred, because it has served its purpose. And with each day she practices this, her relationship with pain changes. What once felt like a crushing weight begins to feel like a teacher. The same tears that once weakened her now soften her heart, reminding her of her humanity, her depth, her capacity to love. By holding her sorrow with compassion, she proves to herself that she is more than her wounds. She is the one who feels them, survives them, and moves through them. When love fades, it often reveals something deeper than heartbreak, the quiet realization of how much of herself she may have left behind. In relationships, women often give generously. They bend, they adjust, they sacrifice parts of their own rhythm so that harmony can exist with another. Sometimes this giving is subtle, almost invisible, but over the years it becomes heavy. And when love no longer holds her, she begins to notice the spaces inside her where her own voice has grown faint. Rediscovery begins with small questions. What did I once love to do before this relationship? What lit my spirit on fire when no one else was watching? What part of me went silent because I thought it was too much, too inconvenient, too misunderstood? These questions, though simple, open the doors to lost rooms within her soul. She starts to remember the books she once dreamed of writing, the music she once danced to without fear of judgment, the ambitions she once carried like a secret flame. At first, returning to these forgotten parts feels unfamiliar. It's like meeting an old friend she hasn't spoken to in years. There may be hesitation, even doubt. Am I still capable of this? Do I still deserve this dream? Can I really live for myself now? But as she steps into these old passions again, painting, writing, learning, traveling, growing, she discovers they never truly left her. They were waiting patiently for her to return. This process of rediscovery is powerful because it shifts her focus from what was lost to what still remains. Instead of clinging to the identity she had within the relationship, she begins to embrace the wholeness of who she was before it and who she can become beyond it. The forgotten parts of herself are not fragments. They are pieces of her original strengths. Each rediscovery is like finding light after darkness, like remembering her own reflection after years of looking through someone else's eyes. With time, these parts no longer feel forgotten. They become the foundation of her new self. And as she embraces them, she learns an unshakable truth. Love can be beautiful, but it should never ask her to erase herself. Because the greatest healing is not found in replacing what was lost, but in reclaiming what was always hers. There is a common fear when love ends, the fear that being alone means being incomplete. For many women, companionship becomes so deeply woven into daily life that its absence feels like a void too wide to cross. The silence of mornings without a shared greeting, the evenings without someone waiting at home can create a sharp ache. Loneliness often disguises itself as emptiness. But healing begins when she discovers that standing alone does not mean she is lacking. It means she is learning to carry her own fullness. At first, solitude feels uncomfortable. The quiet is heavy, and the hours seem longer. She may look at the empty space beside her and feel a longing for what was familiar. But over time, solitude begins to change its shape. What once seemed like emptiness starts to reveal itself as freedom. She notices she can make choices without permission, create routines that honor her energy, and breathe in a rhythm that belongs only to her. The very space that once frightened her becomes a canvas where she can design her own life again. Standing alone without feeling empty requires a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on what is missing, she begins to see what is present. Her thoughts, her body, her dreams, her spirit, all still here. all still alive. She learns to enjoy her own company, perhaps through reading, journaling, walking in nature, or simply sitting quietly with herself. In those moments, she realizes that she is not lonely. She is becoming intimate with her own soul. This independence is not about rejecting love or connection. It is about no longer depending on them for wholeness. When she stands alone, she does not close the door to future love, but she no longer fears life without it. She carries within her the understanding that her value is not defined by who walks beside her, but by how fully she can stand on her own feet. And when a woman reaches this point, something powerful happens. Solitude is no longer a punishment, but a sanctuary. The emptiness transforms into space, space for her passions, her growth, her peace. What once felt like being abandoned now feels like being rooted in her own presence. And in that presence, she discovers a strength that no separation can take away. When love no longer holds her, one of the deepest lessons a woman learns is that healing is not only about mending the past, but also about protecting the future. Pain often arrives because boundaries were unclear, overlooked, or dismissed. In the search for closeness, she may have silenced her own needs, tolerated what was heavy, or accepted what diminished her light. But healing invites her to draw a new map of her inner world, a map with gates instead of walls, boundaries that honor her worth and protect her spirit. Creating boundaries is not about becoming hard or distant. It is about clarity. It is the quiet strength of knowing where she ends and where another begins. She realizes that saying no is not cruelty, but self-respect. And saying yes only when her heart aligns with it is an act of integrity. These choices, once difficult, become the foundation of her new strengths. Boundaries teach her that she does not need to carry every burden or absorb every storm. She learns that love without respect is not love at all, and connection without safety is only an illusion of closeness. By protecting her space, her energy, her time, her body, her emotions, she begins to cultivate an environment where her spirit can breathe freely again. At first, others may not understand her boundaries. They may see them as distance, even rejection, but she learns that protecting her peace is not something she owes an explanation for. She does not build walls to keep love out. She builds gates that allow the right love to enter. Boundaries are not barriers. They are invitations for healthier connections, ones where she can stand in her full truth without fear of being diminished. Over time, this practice changes how she views herself. Each boundary she sets is a declaration that she values her well-being. Each limit she enforces is a reminder that her spirit is sacred ground. The more she practices, the more natural it feels, until protecting her energy becomes as essential as breathing. And through these boundaries, she begins to experience a deeper kind of love. Not one that drains her, but one that respects her. There comes a point in a woman's healing when the sharpness of pain softens, when the wounds that once bled so heavily begin to close. What remains is not just a scar, but a story. At first, she may resist telling it because it reminds her of loss. But in time, she discovers that her story is not only about heartbreak, it is about survival, about courage, about becoming someone new in the ashes of what was left behind. And when she chooses to see it this way, her story transforms into wisdom. Wisdom does not erase what happened. It does not rewrite the past to make it prettier or easier. Instead, wisdom gathers every tear, every mistake, every lesson, and shapes them into guidance. She realizes that her story carries light, light that not only illuminates her own path, but can also guide others who find themselves walking through similar darkness. What once felt like a burden becomes a source of strength she can share. This transformation happens quietly. One day she notices she can speak of her past without breaking. Another day she recognizes that the anger has lifted and in its place is understanding. Eventually she sees that what once felt like the end of her life was in fact the beginning of her awakening. The cracks that once made her feel broken now allow her light to shine through. Through this wisdom, her perspective changes. She no longer sees herself as a victim of love lost, but as a student of life who has graduated with deeper insight. She understands the importance of balance, of giving without losing herself, of loving without erasing her own boundaries, of trusting without abandoning her intuition. These are lessons she could not have gained without walking through her pain. And so, her story becomes more than memory. It becomes a compass that points her toward healthier choices, toward relationships built on respect and authenticity, toward a future where she no longer fears loss because she knows she can rebuild. Most importantly, her story becomes proof that she is resilient, proof that she is capable, proof that even when love no longer holds her, she still holds herself. When love no longer holds a woman, it may feel like the world has ended, but in truth, it is the world beginning again through her. She walks through silence, she learns to honor pain, she rediscovers the forgotten parts of herself, she finds strength in standing alone, she builds boundaries that protect her spirit, and finally she turns her story into wisdom. Her healing is not a straight path. It bends, it rises, it stumbles, and it grows. Yet each step she takes becomes proof that she is more than the love that left her. She is the love that remains within her, the love that rebuilds her, the love that guides her forward. So the end of one chapter is not the end of her story. It is the invitation to write a new one filled with self-respect, clarity, and a strength so radiant that no loss can dim it. And in that new chapter, she no longer waits for love to hold her. She holds herself, and in doing so, she discovers the most unshakable truth. She was whole all along.